talk to me about Money in the Bank. That the actual match. Like, what does something like that take to go over? Do you do it day of, week of? Like, talk to me about the actual putting a match like that together.
Yeah. Um, WrestleMania is different. Usually everything's done on the day, but for WrestleMania, you have like, you get into the WWE rolls into whatever town they're in and they just take over for 5 days. And there's events and so every day that we're there, there's ring time. So you have, the Money in the Bank guys meeting from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. in this ballroom, and they would have like a giant ring. I think they had two rings actually set up, and they had a bunch of ladders and crash pads in there and stuff for us to, and all of us would meet. And Michael Hayes was the lead producer on that, and just he would sort of lay out, here's what we want. We want to make sure everybody gets some stuff in, and then we just kind of start throwing out ideas. And it wasn't until Edge was supposed to be going over in that for the first 2 or 3 days that we talked it over. And then I think 2 days out, they said, hey, we're going to do Kennedy, which again, I'm like inside, I'm exploding, but I'm also, this could change. Oftentimes things do change and they change at the last minute. And sometimes they change when you're in the ring. The referee says, hey, you have 2 minutes, go home. But yeah, and I remember trying to come up with some moment with Hornswoggle, and it was his idea to do they wanted me to hit him with something, and he was the one that suggested that I hit him with my Finley roll off the ladder. And we tried it onto the crash pad, and then did it on the day. It was
Big
which is
bump.
it's really not. It's kind of if you look, our feet are roughly in the same spot that they would be taking it out of the turnbuckle.
Sure.
So, but it just looks more impressive coming off the ladder. It was a little higher, but he's a little guy. He's a big little guy, and I just wanted to make sure that he was taken care of. So I remember I hit him with it, and I couldn't check on him right away because I had to roll away from him and do something else. And I got into it with Finley a little bit, and then I finally was able to roll out. He was underneath the turnbuckle, and I was like, "Are you okay?" He's like, "Yeah, man." Like, just twiddling his thumbs. You have those conversations when you're in the room with people that you're beating each other up, and you're like, "What are we going to do tonight after the show?"
So you win Money in the Bank. You're stand. What's that moment like at WrestleMania for you? You must have watched the first 20 WrestleManias as a fan. Now here you are, you're in the ring winning Money in the Bank, and the perception, especially then, you're going to be the next world heavyweight champion or a world heavyweight champion.
Yeah. Again, I'm trying to maintain, like, I'm trying not to get too excited because things can change, which they did. But I just remember wanting that moment of lifting up that briefcase, and then I think I almost fell off the ladder. Actually, I think I almost fell off the ladder.
Really?
This would be terrible right now. Actually, it was getting the briefcase off that hook was like, it's a big briefcase. It's awkwardly positioned. I got to get that. And there's like a
The
cart.
ladder shaking. There's
Yep.
20 million people watching you. Yeah, it's a lot.
If I drop this thing, what am I gonna do? I'm gonna have to drop an elbow off it or something. Um, but yeah, and then I remember being in the ring and looking out and being kind of surprised that it didn't look any different from just a really packed arena. It was 83,000 people are there. We're used to working in front of like maximum 30,000, 25. And it just looked like a really full 25,000 seat arena. And I got showered up and I went up into the luxury boxes where they had the family. And that was when I looked out and I saw this just giant bowl, this sea of people, and this tiny little ring in the center. And I was like, I can't believe I just did that. That was the moment.
That's awesome. So Undertaker gets hurt. You have the
Yep.
briefcase. I mean, it would have seemed like the plans were for the next week
Nope.
for you to cash in on. Was that the plan?
I left. I remember the week before I got injured and then dropped the briefcase to Edge. I had left. Matt Hardy and I were riding together, and we left early that day for some reason, which we never did. You're always supposed to stay until the very end. For whatever reason, we're like, let's just dip out. Nobody will see us. So we get on the road. I think we had a long drive. So we get on the road and got a call from Michael Hayes. Where are you? Boss needs to talk to you. Oh, I'll be right there. So we drove back. And by the time I got back, the building was pretty much cleared out. And I was walking down the hall to the boss's office, and Batista came out, and we just kind of passed each other. And he was like, hey, man, he came up to me and, gave me a big hug. And he was like, you deserve it. And I went in, and then it was Vince and Stephanie. And Vince was like, hey, Taker's injured. We were planning on having him be the champion for a very long time. We were planning on having you cash in the briefcase at WrestleMania next year. However, we need to get the title off of Taker. So here's what we're going to do. And he kind of laid out, a loose scenario of Taker was going to have a cage match. And at some point, he was going to barely eke out a victory. And then somebody else was going to come out and damage him a little more. And then I was going to come out and cash the briefcase in and cover him 1, 2, 3, pretty much. And, that was the plan. I left there and didn't really tell anybody. The two guys in the office knew. Mark Carano and Michael Cole were the only two that knew. And ended up going home. The very next time I wrestled, I tore my triceps. And I thought I tore my triceps. I took a bump. My arm swelled up. I couldn't move my arm. It turned colors right away. I went to Hornswoggle, drove me to the emergency room that night. We went in, I got an MRI, and I was sitting around in my hotel room the next day, and Stephanie called me and she said, hey, Ken, you tore your triceps off the bone and you're going to have surgery. You're going to be out for 8 months. So we still need to get that title off of Taker. We're going to send Vince's jet to come pick you up. You're going to go to Penn State tonight, and Edge is going to do what you were going to do. So, it's like, all right, it is what it is. This is business. This is why I didn't get too excited about things. So I was kind of happy at that point. And I went in, dropped the briefcase to Edge. And then the next day I flew to Birmingham, Alabama, and I sat on Dr. James Andrews, does all the surgeries for the WWE. And he grabbed my tricep and he was just feeling it. And he was like, that's not a tear. And like, what are you saying? And he's like, yeah, I don't feel a tear in there. For some reason, he couldn't find the MRI, so I had to do another MRI. And then they called me later and said, no, it's just a large hematoma. It's just a bunch of blood vessels that popped in that area. You'll be out for maybe 5 weeks. So that was like,
the
but
highest, the lowest, the lows. Wow.
yeah. But I remember too, like that was the most painful injury I've ever had because there was so much swelling that I literally at one point I was like, I think I'm gonna have to go to the emergency room and they're gonna have to cut my skin because it just felt like it was gonna explode. But yeah, it was 4 or 5 weeks and I was back.
Talk to me about your school.
Yeah, just been running the school since 2016 here in the Twin Cities, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and just trying to give people the opportunities that it took me 6 years to get to the WWE, and I had to sort of figure out the formula along the way, and lots of try things, it doesn't work, and just picking up little tidbits of information here and there and piecing it together. So I just wanted to just give people an opportunity to like cut out a lot of that extra work and make it a little easier for them. So I just try to teach everybody from, from ground up. I focus really heavily on basics, and I focus really heavily on psychology because I think storytelling is where it's at. And we've had several graduates. We've had, I think we have about 30 graduates. So not everybody graduates, but we've had some of our students. Dante and Darius Martin are in AEW as we speak. Julia Hart's in AEW. We got Tiffany Stratton, who's one of our students. Von Wagner is one of our students. Javier Bernal. So like we've had some success. Gable Stevenson. So
If people want to find your information on your school, promoters want to get in touch with you, what's the best way?
we have a website. So it's the Academy, SOPW.com. And or they can just text me directly at I've got a number. It's 507-722-2776. And that comes right to my phone and my wife's phone, and one of us will get back to you and figure out if anybody's interested in becoming a wrestler and you live in this area. We'd like to help